Welcome to my teaching learning session. We are going to start with BPCS today, which is 183, which is going to talk about one of the most interesting topic, which is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence block 1 with unit 1 is going to talk about the concept of emotion. It's going to equip us and tell us what are actually emotions, what is it defined in terms of its operational ways, what is the nature and characteristic of emotions, and at the same time there are some components that we need to look through when we talk about emotions. There are types of emotions, the relationship between emotions, thinking, and behavior, which is a paramount for all of us to understand that does thinking really is impacted by emotion? Are our behaviors really impacted by emotions? And do we really get driven by the same? So, as we begin, let's start with Unit 1 and its understanding the nature and the characteristic of emotion. So, emotion is certainly not the most simplest thing that we deal with. Emotion is a very complex attribute of human life and it's very loosely connected with events that begins with the stimulus like feelings, mood, psychological changes, impulses, actions, and we need to know that emotions also come with a thought of a goal directed behavior. So, emotions will also be felt, a mood will also be changed, a process of stimulus, a feeling will also be triggered with the perspective that it has a goal which is to be achieved. Plutchik in 2001 stated this. Plutchik has been one of the most influential psychologist of emotional intelligence and emotions who gave us a lot about what emotions are, what are the different kind of emotion and an emotional wheel. Now, operationally defining emotion, Woodward in 1945 stated that emotion is, as a stirred up state of organism. It is indeed. Emotion does trigger a lot of things in our body, not only psychological but also physiological changes of feeling restlessness, that gush of the blood, that feeling of feel the warmth if it's anger and the pleasantness in the body if it's happiness. So it is a stirred up state of of an organism that appears as feeling to the individuals as to himself and a disturbed muscular and a glandular activity to the external observer, which is very true. For the person within will feel it as a feeling, as a labeled feeling of it, if it's anger, if it is embarrassment, if it is joy, happiness. And for an external source, it will look like muscular changes, tightening of the body, impulsive expression of something, or probably a pleasant feeling of sitting down in one place and enjoying joyfully for as an external source. Now, speaking of emotion, our experience in response to a particular internal or external event. So, we do not have emotions triggered randomly. It happens either because you have an internal or an external event. A response of this kind involves physical arousal, with like body heart rate, blood, your blood pressure increasing. There is, perspiring of some organisms. There's a huge release of hormones that we will see in human beings. And at the same time, secondly, a motivation is taken in action to activate the seeking things, which is, for example, motivation is paramount. I feel motivation is prerequisite for your emotions to be triggered. So, yes, motivation to take action is activated seeking things, and activities that provide us pleasure or avoiding those give us pain. So, see, emotion can be in both the sides. Emotion can also be at a time when you know you look forward to pleasure seeking activities, like it could be felt when you're motivated towards something like that, and at the same time it could be the motivation where you feel the pain. Like, for example, I feel sport activities involve both together. We are motivated to compete, at the same time we are enjoying the wins to us, and at time we are painfully triggered by the loss that we feel. Thirdly, emotion arise out of our sensation, perception, thoughts, which are related to people, situation, and event. And also, it depends on how do we perceive something and think about it and interpret it. So, as we talk about the nature, remember, the way we perceive emotion will highly depend upon the way that we think about that situation, interpret that situation, and probably even people. So if you're interacting with a person that you really like, remember, you know that this is the kind of emotion that is going to be triggered. At the same time, if you know that this kind of person is not going to provide me any sort of good and it's going to be all harm, remember, we are going to label, perceive that something in the same particular manner and interpret it accordingly, and so are we going to experience emotion like that. Lastly, Emotions vary in their intensity, which is very true. There could be emotions which are of higher intensity, some are very neutral, and some of very low intensity. Example: happiness can be experienced as, pleasant, contented, and lower at the end of the continuum. At times, it could start from ecstasy and, very excited, buffered of body, glandorial activities or hormonal change. And at this time, it could be very neutral, experiencing it in a pleasant way, no changes in the body. It's a very neutral state. So, yes, emotions do vary in their intensity. Remember, not anyone or everyone, I feel, will experience emotion always in the same intensity. It's always high, it's always low. No, it will always vary, even in individuals who experience it very regularly. Also, emotion can be desirable and undesirable. We need to know, as usual. It is joy, there is happiness, there is sadness. At the same time, there is anger and there is submission also. So it could be positive or either negative. It is performed as positive or negative to I feel, to cultivate or to take care of the adaptive function of an individual. So emotion does, it does provide the function of being, of making us adaptive, being able to cope with the situation, and being able to, reach towards our goal with a respective or a particular emotion that needs to be fulfilled by the end of the day or probably end of an event. So these are the initial nature, that what emotion is all about. Emotion is physical arousal, psychological. It provides us pleasure, and it comes in various intensity. It is desirable, undesirable. Also, it arises from sensation, perception, and our own thoughts, which label it, appraises it accordingly. That completes with the nature in the beginning, stating emotion. Some of the basic emotion, as was there on the screen, which is joy, trust, fear, sadness, surprise, disgust, anger, and anticipation. All of those smiley faces just gives us the right amount of basic emotions reflected in the image. So these are basic emotions that we have, the 8 basic emotions. Now, emotions are not, coming back to what are the different, what is the nature in more deeper understanding of emotion. Emotion are not as same as feeling, and it's not even same as mood. At times we get very confused when we state that we're feeling something like this. We might be feeling something, but probably cannot label it as emotion. So the two are not the same, even though we use it at times in a very interchangeable manner, the feeling and the emotion, but it's not. Feeling is referred to a person's private sense of state or perception of specific emotion. When an event occurs, one must respond automatically at a physical level without awareness, and then register or evaluate this feeling. So when we talk about a feeling, remember, it's far more private, very self perceiving, and it's specific to an event. And when an event occurs, one first responds automatically to, at a physical level, even without awareness. So, because the feeling is so private. Whereas emotion is a whole big concept, as we studied last, in the initial slide, that's psychological, physiological. So, the changes are of the multi dimensions that we experience simultaneously in our body when experienced emotion. Mood equally is different. Mood and emotions are not similar. Emotions last for short periods of time, arise in respond to a political situation. Remember, moods are of lower intensity. It is not of a higher intensity, but it prevails for a longer time. Even for days, at times it can go on for days, go on for hours, and at times it could just start and finish also. So when we talk about emotions, remember, emotion is generally short period of time and it's more lasting. Whereas mood is not so lasting, it does not have much of an intensity, rather, and but it is very longer lived in comparison to the emotion. Also, while emotions are directed at something because it's goal directed, like anger at your brother, frustrated because you're waiting in a line, because of the traffic jam, a longer queue of traffic jam, which is a mood, can arise because of no apparent reason. Like, I haven't you seen the generation today stated, I'm in a bad mood today. Today I am in a mood which makes me feel angry all the time. So it is happening because of no apparent reason. Plus, it is longer in duration, that will stay, but shorter in intensity, as opposite to emotion. Emotion is shorter lived but has larger impact that we have. So this is the functions of emotions to begin with. Does really emotion matter to us? Emotion does matter because they come with a purpose. Eh, none of us will experience emotion without a purpose. A purpose is paramount for emotion because emotions are goal directed. They come to complete something in a event situation or probably in any perspective thing, it comes to complete something. First, what is the first function that we have? It is the intrapersonal. Why emotion does facilitate us? It's all about internal process. So this domain refers to emotions serving the person within. So it is us. Intra is always you and yourself. It's not you and the others. So here emotion guides your behavior, makes you feel comfortable, make you survive, make you deal with circumstances and cope with the problem. And then we talk about the interpersonal, which is opposite of the intrapersonal, which is emotions with the others. How is this supporting us? It helps us express our feelings, our interaction, our our, it indicates the way we want to interact with somebody, and probably I'm sure it's also a signal how signal to others that how do we feel about them, or how do we want to interact about them. So that's what interpersonal does to us, which is support our outside interactions in terms of helping the others understand what are we feeling about them, at the same time helping us to navigate us in that conversation with other people. And intra, on the other hand, is about you. It's making you survive, making you understand, making you help make decisions, cope in an environment, etc. Then, moving ahead, we have the social and the cultural function of emotion. See, this dimension has to do with how emotions contribute in a constructive way and maintain your societies and culture. So, emotion like honesty in a group could be something which is a culture, serves as a cultural function. Trust often can be a social glue that keeps people together. And at the same time, when we talk about cohesive groups in turn of societies evolve their own distinctive cultures. Remember, every culture and social group has a different emotion. So at times we can identify cultural and social group on the basis of the emotion which is gluing them together. For some, it could be trust. For some, it could be just compliance. And for some, it could be an emotion of honesty sticking together. And at times it could be just a functional thing of reciprocating each other's deeds, one to the other and the other to another. So on the other part, cultural code inform us that individuals and groups about their specific rules exist for their emotional expression. That's why, when we move out of India, the ways of expression of emotions is far more different than Indians. The kind of love a mother does to the son, or the son or the child, I feel respectively, a child does to the mother is very different in the Indian context and in the social cultural function. And Western culture, it's completely different. So remember, the emotions does serve a purpose to us to identify that what is their core norm, emotional norm of their group, the expressive norm of their group, etc. And then we talk about components. Once understanding what is the nature of emotion, emotions are psychological, physiological, and at the same time expressive in nature. We have 8 basic emotion that we studied, and at the same time emotions varies in intensity. It would be individually different of some. Same event can be individually different to people. It is intra, inter, and social in function, which is it takes care not only us to decide about ourselves within, but it also supports our interaction with outside environment. At the same time, let's talk about some components of emotion. So emotions does have 5 components, which is it is comprising of some connotation to itself, which is affective, cognitive, behavioral, expression, and physiological in nature, and even motivational. This also tells us, the components also tells us that at times what are the goals of emotions. Emotion is always going to be a goal directed. The feeling that you label within yourself is always going to be goal directed. So when we speak about goal direction, remember, so goal direction is that it is coming to complete an affective node, it's going to complete a cognitive node, or probably it's just coming to trigger your body motivationally. So let's start with the first component of emotion, which is the affective. Affective is also equivalent to the conscious subjective feeling that you have. So emotional component, one of the first and the most important component, because the affective is also equivalent to the emotion. The term itself is emotion. So it means the conscious subjective feeling, the individuals, the way the individuals monitor their internal and felt state and recognize what they are feeling. So that's the component of affective. Then we speak about something which is cognitive. Cognitive involves describing or assigning meaning. Cognition is always about thinking, reasoning, problem solving. Thus, thinking about a feeling is very different from actual feeling. Individuals, when I feel, when we talk about cognition, is there in emotions. You know, a lot of people feel that emotions are just triggered. They are just mechanism that leads to behavior with high intensity. No. Emotion does have the process of assigning meaning to a situation. Your emotions come as per situations because it has thought over in terms of description, assigning meaning, etc. Also, thinking about a feeling is very different than actually feeling that feeling. Then also emotional intelligence also is a component which comes from the cognitive state of component, which is emotional. EI is an outproduct of the cognitive component, which is the ability to understand well, reason well, and judge well your environment. Then we have the physiological state, which is the bodily state, which is talking about the sweating, the palpitation, the rise in the blood pressure, the heightened state of respiration. So that is another component which is carried on whenever you're experiencing an emotion. Then we have motivational. Motivational talking about going towards or away from an action or a person. So this component is talking about an action tendency which refers to a specific action that the individual may be voluntarily doing or involuntarily doing. So if you're voluntarily doing something, so if your body is triggered and you're voluntarily motivated to do something, remember you're going to have the cognitive and affective component very strongly held because you're conscious enough of your feeling. But you know, at times when we're playing a sport and we're in a rush, my body is completely triggered and motivated, the tendencies are so high, it would going to be an involuntary response, which is you automatically do because in the heat of the moment, we end up doing it. At that point of time, the cognition and the subjective feelings are way different from one person to the other. So that's the fourth that we spoke about. And then we come to the last, which is the expressive one. The expressive component talks about the display of emotions through facial features. I always, in the beginning, as I started and said, emotion does uses our face as a mirror, which is a completely right thing. Expression usually comes from your facial expression that can at times gives a correct way of understanding it and at times also lead to a lot of confusion. At times people are not able to have the right kind of facial expression which can make them confused in terms of interpersonal interaction and interpersonal function, and at the same time proper the connect between what are you feeling and what are you expressing through your facial expression just takes care and helps you cope with situation as survival in nature, etc. So this completes the components that we were talking about emotion. Let's understand, does emotion comes in different types? So does emotion actually takes care of something which is coming in different forms that we have? So first, speaking of emotions are always categorized into two. So when we're going to talk about types of emotion, we always have to come down to primary and secondary emotion. Primary emotions are some of the emotions which are the basic one that we just studied, and they're hardwired emotion. Those are ones that we cannot do without, and something which is going to be present in varying intensity in everybody. So these are basic, universal in all culture and social context. As I stated, everyone is going to be able to experience this, and they have it. They feel it too, but it could vary in intensity. They're about to evolve, or they aid our survival. Basic emotion will always aid our survival, whereas I feel the secondary emotion, which is an amalgamation and combination of the primary emotion, just help us express it in a more flamboyant and a more in a more beautiful pattern. Whereas basic helps us to cope, basic help us to survive. It aids our survival at a greater level. It's because we're hardwired only with those eight emotions. And it's going to be universal, present in every cultural and social context. So if you could feel those eight emotions, remember you can expect the other eight can from the other person, which is you can expect that the other eight emotions that you're experiencing is equally expressed by the other person because it's universal in nature. Then we speak about, as I said, Robert Plutchik. He gave a lot of researches on the terms of emotion. So the researches that he came up was he identified some of the eight emotions as fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, anger, anticipation, joy, and trust. So he represented these eight in a color way. So this was 2003 when Robert Plutchik made sure that all of these eight emotions are reflected in the colored wheel. I'll explain you the colored wheel. The combination and the layers of the primary emotion might give rise to more complex emotion, which are called secondary, as I said. So probably fear and surprise and the connotations, the different terminologies of fear and surprise could lead to another emotion. So they say the primary emotion gives rise to more complex emotions, which are called as secondary. So now, and it's also cultural specific. Remember, the kind of connotation that comes as of secondary emotion in our culture would be different from what it comes in other culture. It's going to be like ecstasy. I feel in our culture is not much appreciated, where it is quite expressed also and appreciated in outside culture. So let's understand the blue chick theory and the image that we have. So first understand Robert Plutchik was a psychologist. He gave a Plutchik model, which is shown above. Eight basic emotion is in the where you see the second aspect. I hope everyone can see this. Not the first, but the second wheel. From the center, the second wheel, which has joy, trust, fear, surprise, sadness, disgust, and anger. These are eight basic emotion and based on the physiological purpose of each one of us. So they have to be there. And the model actually is like a little, if you see it like a cone, it's like a little ice cream cone which unfolds so many emotions. So first of all, the basic emotion also tells you something. Look at the opposite of the basic emotion. The same second wheel, joy is opposite. When we talk about joy's opposite is sadness. See, fear's opposite is anger, surprise opposite is anticipation, trust opposite is disgust, sadness opposite is joy. So the wheel has, eight of the emotions are placed in a pattern that the opposite are facing each other. Remember, the wheel has going from the ascending to the descending order. So when we talk about ecstasy is the highest intensity of joy and it's the most least in terms of serenity. Look at trust. Trust becomes more stringent when it comes to admiration and acceptance on the lower side. Fear can on the lighter side be just apprehension. So fear can start from apprehension. So when we talk about the external of the wheel of the cone, the external is the lighter intensity, then comes your basic emotion, and the internal core is it's the highest. So from the lightest intensity we move to the highest intensity, and the middle holds our basic emotion. All the basic emotions are placed in terms of opposite. So let's take another example. Fear is the basic emotion. So apprehension is the lighter intensity and terror is the highest. Let's take surprise. Surprise, obviously, in the beginning it is distraction, but later it becomes amazement. The highest intensity is amazement. Let's talk about sadness to, explain. Pensive mode, when we have, it's the lightest mode of sadness. But remember, grief is the highest intensity of sadness. Then we talk about loathing. Loathing is highest mode of disgust, and it can start from boredom. So it can start from boredom, disgust, and loathing. And then let's come to anger being the basic emotion. It starts from the annoyance, getting irritated, then comes to anger. And anger leads to rage in people. It could lead to rage. So that is something how we talk about the basic emotions here. Also, let's take an example here. Joy and trust will lead to love. So that's the combination of the two basic emotions. Trust and fear will lead to submission. Fear and surprise will lead to a feeling of awe. Sadness and surprise would be disapproval. Sadness and disgust will be remorse. Anger and disgust would be contempt. Remember, anger and anticipation would be aggressiveness. You're doing something. Joy and anticipation, you're anticipating and it's filled of happiness, it's going to be optimism. So the combination of the primary emotion gives rise to another emotion that we have. It's a beautiful way of putting down all the basic emotion, giving rise to other emotions in our life. This model was beautifully put up by Robert Plutchik, who stated that how primary emotions can be basic for coping and survival, but can give rise to so many other emotions in our life that we use to express in our day-to-day activities. That completes with Plutchik thought. And now let's move to the relationship between emotions, thinking, and behavior. One of the most important thing which we all get confused with. We feel that all of it's connected? Yes. See, emotions, thinking, and behavior are inextricably linked. Also, the relationship can be best explained by the image which is presented on the the image that you see on the left hand side, see there's a situation. Let's take an example. Not prepared for an examination is the trigger, and you have an exam the next day. As soon as you reach to the examination hall, the thought that will trigger would be not prepared. How am I going to complete the paper? The paper is going to be long. I probably will not be able to understand. So remember, there are two thoughts, which the thoughts is triggering two things. One is an emotion, simultaneously a behavior. So the emotion is obviously that feeling of sadness of not being prepared, and the behavior is the inability to complete the paper properly because you're not prepared. Started with that triggering thought that we have. So one's thought or interpretation of situation has a significant impact on how you feel an emotion and how you further behave. So the process of assigning meaning to an event or situation is called an appraisal, which is very true. So the way you interpret a situation emotionally is appraising the situation. And remember, when we are appraising a situation, there is also a term called cognitive appraisal, where we are evaluating on a situation, when we are interpreting it properly, finding the meaning, being able to reason, analyze the circumstances and the resultant emotion. Specific appraisal usually give rise to a particular emotion and influences the intensity and quality as well. So some appraisals that we've already formed in our mind that this situation is bad. So if you've already appraised it as bad, remember the emotions are specifically going to be sad and bad, probably disgusting or boredom, and the quality of emotions is equally going to be the same. So what this entire relationship is saying, that yes, emotion thinking and behavior is inextricably related. That means it does impact one another. With that concept, we have a concept of appraisal, which is the way you appraise the situation is the way the emotions and behavior are going to be. The harmful that you appraise them, the harmful the behaviors are going to be and emotions. The joyful and positive and challenging you take the cognitive appraisal. The happier and challengeful is going to be your behavior. So that is the relationship between emotions, thinking, and behavior. This image will always be helpful for you to put it out. Now, beginning, as we understood what was, emotions, emotion has always been a very interesting topic because it talks about how we feel things, how we interpret things. Are emotions going to be placid? Are they always equal to all people? So, after knowing that, remember we have another concept of understanding the emotional intelligence that we discuss. So, the cognitive component of emotion is emotional intelligence. So, Unit 2 will cater to the historical development of emotion and equally emotional development and emotional intelligence and some components of emotional intelligence. So, Unit 2 will now cater to objectives, the concept of emotional intelligence, which is also called as EI, the definition. We are going to talk about what is emotional intelligence and what is not emotional intelligence, the historical background of how it all emerged, some components, the relationship between EQ and IQ, and the benefit of being emotionally intelligent, which is something that we all should know today. Then, let's start with the concept of emotional intelligence. See, emotional intelligence reflects the current view of the modern neuroscience, where emotions are framed as a source of source of data coming from the environment rather than hindrances or disruptors in the rational thinking. So it's the way the information hits your mind and emotions are interpreted and further goes on. Also, in fact, the word emotion comes from the term Latin word motere or movere, which is to move. And I always feel emotions are always moved by your drives, which is that's the reason, the word Latin word movere and motere is something which is leading to the formation of the word emotion. It also means, by Dorsey stated in 1998, which is quite close, the stirring up, the agitation, or to excite. Emotional intelligence leverages and expands on these ideas only by proposing that emotional intelligence will enable you to think well, memorize, judge well, and reason well, and at the same time regulate your emotions well. And some basic principles about emotions that are actually relevant to emotional intelligence. See, emotions are information. They tell you what are you feeling, how are you feeling, and that you use it to judge the world or judge the people. Then we talk about decision must incorporate emotions in order to be effective and lead to intended outcomes, which is whenever deciding something, whenever leading to problem solving, decision making, analyzing a situation. Remember, emotion should always be powering that decision or powering that decision making or problem solving, because that what make your outcome very effective. For example, Reinhardt and Schwartz in 2012 stated that people in a less positive or negative mood perceive truthful information more effectively than those in always positive mood. So, which is true. Your decision must incorporate emotions in various degree to be effective out to have an effective outcome. You should not always feel the similar kind of emotion while deciding. Remember, you should feel the right kind of state of mind and the right kind of emotion and feeling that you're experiencing right now. At the same time, we can try to ignore emotion, but it doesn't work that way, especially over a period of time. If we feel that we can suppress emotion, we can hide emotion, do away with it. No, it does not happen. Remember that mental energy gets suppressed, but it does get directed back to you in some of the tasks later. We have heard about the concept of repressed memories by Sigmund Freud. If you repress so much and suppress so much of emotion, it starts forming memories, it starts forming a chain of emotions, which probably can be very stressful and harmful later in life. It could lead to emotional outbursts, the irregulated, irregulated I feel split and flow of emotion in front of people. So remember, we cannot ignore emotion when taking the cognitive aspect in hand. So that talks about some of the important emotional component when we are talking about emotional intelligence. Let's understand what is emotional intelligence. It is a social and emotional skill that influences the way we perceive and express ourselves and develop and maintain our social relationship and cope with challenges and use the emotional information very effectively and meaningfully in our day-to-day life. So yes, emotional intelligence is a skill. It's the skill to perceive rightly, express rightly, develop using that same thought that you had, the same emotion that you felt, develop using that, maintain your social relationship, being able to challenge and cope up with people. I feel in today's world, people who are emotionally intelligent are far more brilliant than people who are just intelligent. The reason intelligence just talks about the way you perceive, judge, and logically make sense out of things. The vibrant ways of maintaining relationship, expressing yourself appropriately, appreciating people, using emotional information for other people and also for yourself at the right time and in the right way actually makes you survive the world better. So that's one. The other thing was one of the most important definition by Salvoy and Mayer in 1990 that he stated that emotional intelligence is like a subset of social intelligence. It's the ability to monitor one's own feelings and other people's feelings and emotion and discriminating them amongst the others and to use the information to guide one's actions and behavior, which is very true. Emotional intelligence is rightly quoted and understood when you're able to manage and monitor your emotions. So, if you cannot monitor and regulate your own emotions well, and even other people's emotion, you will never be able to discriminate how do you feel at point one, at point two, and point later. And so can you not discriminate from the other people. So, the use of that information will help and support your decision making and your actions and thinking. So this was one of the most famous definition of Salvo and Mayer, still being used. We still use it at researchers and quoted places. Now, after understanding what is emotional intelligence, let's know what is not emotional intelligence and what is emotional intelligence. Starting with what it is. See, being aware of oneself is emotional intelligence. Being able to manage emotions, which is regulating, being socially aware, being aware of your social environment, as Salvoy stated that it was a subset of social intelligence. You need to be socially aware when talking about emotional intelligence. Ability to manage interpersonal relationship by using emotions, and it is a field of study that will tell you how to think well, monitor well, discriminate, and understand yourself well too. Now let's understand it's a scientific field. And what is not emotion? What is not emotional intelligence? See, suppressing emotion is never something that you can call as emotional intelligence. Suppressing, repressing, ignoring, no, that's never emotional intelligence. Allowing your emotions to dominate on other people or dominate your decision making, no. If it's only emotions which are deciding your decisions and your thinking pattern, it's not correct. A permanent trait, it's not a permanent trait. It's very dynamic. Your emotions keep changing, your moods keep changing, your sense of feeling keeps changing. An indicator for academic intelligence? No, it is not. Emotional intelligence, a different subset from academic intelligence, which is EQ, and IQ is very different from one another. And it's a person's aptitude. No, it's not a person's aptitude. Aptitude is an underlying ability. Interest is a preference. Emotions is neither. It's neither an underlying ability and nor an interest. Then, avoidance of conflict. No, emotions is not about avoiding conflict, and it's not even the best predictor of success. You need an amalgamation of success for success, intelligence, and emotions. Remember, we are ourselves made about gray and the gray matter and the white matter. You cannot be white matter completely to succeed in life or complete gray matter. So it's not the best indicator of success in life. That talks about what is emotional intelligence and what is not. Let's come to the, through the development, how it all started. See, emotional intelligence researchers started in 1920s from Thorndike, Edward L. Thorndike, the one who gave us learning. He stated that intelligence comprises of three classes or domains: the abstract or verbal or analytical, which is the law, which talks about verbal, analytical, and abstract intelligence. Then one which is most performance, so mechanical and visual spatial, and the last was social and practical, something that you used to be street smart. So Thorndike expanded the similar concept, this his own traditional view of intelligence, to identify that being just purely cognitive in several kind of intelligence will not work. So he gave, the fact that there would be another kind of intelligence which is an emotional intelligence. So he paid way to emotional intelligence. Then Howard Gardner in 1983 talked about his eight multi-intelligence. Multi-intelligence is just supporting and quoting that we do not comprise of one kind of intelligence but multiple intelligence. So it could be something which is interpersonal, intra, logical, mathematical, verbal, visual, spatial, bodily, kinesthetic, naturalistic, etc., and musical intelligence. So he stated that when we have intrapersonal intelligence, that is related to something which is emotional intelligence, according to Howard Gardner. There were more psychologists later which started adding on to the beginning of emotional intelligence, which was Sternberg in 1985. He spoke about three kinds of intelligences, which was analytical, creative, and practical intelligence. Salvo and Mayer again is widely credited to term the thing of emotional intelligence. From all of these researches which were done, the different kind of intelligence that came up, Salvoy was the first person to coin up and credit the term as emotional intelligence, and it all started around 90s 90. Now, when we spoke about emotions having components like affective, cognitive, motivational, our components are also there in emotional intelligence. What are those components? It's perceiving of emotions is the first component. So your ability to register and perceive the emotion correctly and perceiving other people's emotion also. So people who are high on emotional intelligence are able to identify their mood and emotion, and similarly are able to identify other people's, and they're able to label it correctly, and use the right kind of word. Like, when are you feeling very, when you feel very anticipatory, apprehensive, restless, remember you need to label it as fear. You are not in control of yourself, so you need to label it as fear. So that is something which we talk about as the first component, which is perceiving your emotions correctly. Then we have understanding emotions. This is another important component, which is specific information that various emotions provide and knowing how that might affect their behavior. Then we have managing emotion. One of the most important aspect of emotional intelligence, I personally feel, is management and regulation. So being able to recognize this emotions, being able to recognize emotions quickly, understand it, and sort it out for its functioning. Becoming relatively easier for them to think about the next step. So when people are not able to perceive and understand emotion, they cannot control it. They cannot variate the intensity. So you don't know what are you feeling, how are you feeling, so you express it in a very random and haphazard manner. So management of emotion is important because it will help you move towards the next step or how to change them. This applies to self and others both, being able to manage not only your emotion but also other people's emotion. Then the last is being having the ability to use emotions, which is being ability to manage emotions and then further use it in decision making, expressing your feelings, making decisions, problem solving, maintaining relationships, etc. This completes with the components of emotion. Let's move to something which we are going to start with the 2.6 topic, which is intelligence, emotional intelligence, and their relationship. So, speaking of this, do we really feel that intelligence is important for emotions and emotions and intelligence for important for intelligence? Let's understand the relationship between the two. See, the word intelligence ideally connote cognition, the ability to think right, judge right, perceive right. So it's more academically dwelling. It's more academically supportive. However, there are other types of intelligences also, such as social and emotional intelligence. And most well-known definition of intelligence was given by Wechsler. Wechsler stated that intelligence is an aggregate and global capacity of an individual to act purposely, think rationally, and then effectively deal with their environment. So this was intelligence. That how can we understand what is intelligence? Then intelligence came up in two ways, which is the fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. And let's go back to this prior information, which will support us, which will tell us. See, when we talk about intelligence, intelligence is always going to be the cognitive aspect and the cognitive part, which is the thinking. That's why the IQ is the intelligence quotient, which is very logical in formula. If we have not noticed it ever, it is the MA upon CA, which is your mental age upon your chronological age into 100, which tells us that it is a very logical aspect and will align, being logical and scientific will align to something which is an academic intelligence. It's going to be logical. At the same time, there has been more intelligences also, which has been social and emotional. Remember, as we started, Salvo himself stated that emotional intelligence is very similar, a subset of social intelligence. The reason that we quote and how intelligence is leading to all of these intelligences. Intelligence is the global capacity. When it's global, that means all of us to function has a limited amount, an average amount of intelligence, which is general intelligence. So we have the G and the S factor. So the bigger factor of intelligence is the G factor. Why? We all are able to read, cope, live in our world because of the G factor. Then comes the specific factor, which is the talented people. Talented people who are able to manage themselves, who are able to cope up with the living and a different process, and at the same time they have talent which could be it could be elaborately aesthetic, it could be associated to culture, which could be it could be dance, music, it could be something which is associated to painting. So that is which is the specific factor. Similarly came emotional and social intelligence, and they both are entangled, I feel. Reason: emotional intelligence is the ability to deal with people, regulate your emotions, and understand other people, and maintain relationship. And social intelligence equally tells us how to manage and understand people. So that how we justify that intelligence is leading to the other kind of intelligence, which is emotional, and that's how it's relating to it. And the two kinds of intelligence that we further have out after Wechsler was fluid and crystallized. Fluid intelligence is the measure of the ability of information processing and reasoning, whereas crystallized intelligence has to do with acquisition, organization, and is different from information processing. Information processing is how do you learn ABCD in a schedule. Crystallize it has the acquisition that you've done, being able to organize and put to different categories. That's crystallized. That's what crystal feels like. How do you fit them in? Fluid is just the process. Fluid intelligence is how have you done the ABCD learning, and then the fluid being crystallized is where do you fix it? Where do you fix the acquired knowledge and organize it? So that's something are the two types of intelligences in the beginning time after the GNS factor that we studied. Now, lastly, let's come to understand, is emotional intelligence really beneficial? Does it, does really it provide us any benefit? Will it be of any good to us? Yes. See, emotional intelligence has been becoming very popular from the past decades. Past decade, 1 decade, it's been very popular. A lot of researches has been done on it. Emotion itself has been a very interesting topic. People are searching on it, finding cultural differences, talking about how it supports people's relationship and social, making people street smart and socially adaptive. So similarly, it is very popular and it's obviously steadily gaining the traction because of many benefits. And it benefit is it purports to offer you to increase your capacity in every ways. So wherever you put the emotional intelligence, I'm just giving an example. If you put emotional intelligence to a situation, remember it's going to support that situation for you to probably what do you call this, to be able to judge well that situation. Let's take an example. There's a chaotic situation where people are fighting for roles. emotional intelligence will understand that what everyone is going through, if it's emotional intelligence, and then cognitively assigning everyone according to their qualification. So it's both academic and both emotionally, so that we don't hurt other people. We take and rest them a little, understand their emotions associated to the kind of goals they want to do. Now let's come to strictly to the benefits. The first benefit is allows individual to tap into not just thinking capacity, but also the leverage and strengthens. Leverage is information and strengthen the emotion that it brings. So remember, decision making must be have an inclusion of emotion. The reason is it's not only going to support your thinking capacity, but also going to tell you the right fit for the right person. We need to understand at times we need to give roles to people not only as per their intelligence level, but also of their interest and likability, their state of mind and feeling. So what will strengthen this thinking capacity? That emotion that you bring in inside. Also, second benefit, takes a very realistic and practical view of emotion as opposed to the traditional notion. So, when traditionally we always felt that we need to encourage emotion out of certain context, and because, it does lead to encourage unhealthy suppression. So, in the earlier times, what happened? Emotions were thought of only expression of the right kind of emotion. Some emotions which are not correct should not be expressed. So, in that context, traditionally, what used to happen, we used to suppress emotion, which will further lead to a very unhealthy lifestyle and habit. Now, today, we take up a very realistic and practical view of expressing everything in moderation. That's what emotional intelligence is all about, regulating it, and being able to tone down the intensity of not making sure that you completely go out and shout at people when you're very angry. It's about assertively stating your opinion. So, your emotion of assertion tells people that you're actually on it, and at the same time, emotionally associated to all of them. So, we discard the traditional aspect of, traditional, we call that the traditional aspect of holding emotion. So, like for example, let's take this example. Let's compare the generation that you see. See the generation of your grandparents, you will find them speaking only the appropriate or speaking the minimal and speaking right when it's required. Why? Because exchange of emotion was done when it's appropriate. Exchange of emotion was done in certain context to encourage the fact that only these kind of emotions can be appreciated and the others cannot be, which led to what? Unhealthy suppression. There was maybe a lot of grief, a lot of went out that needed to be done, but it wasn't done. So it leads to a very unhealthy suppression, unfortunately, that does not support our today's view, which is very practical. Today's view states of speaking and expressing all your feeling and state of mind and mood in an intensity which is moderation, which is being able to use your intelligence effectively, being able to use your emotion and expressing it to others. So the components come into play: affective, cognitive, motivational, and expressive. So that is how we are different today, more realistic, more practical. We do not believe in suppression of emotions because that's what lead to, I feel, psychological disorders later in life also. Then coming to third, it obviously glorifies the understanding of self, which is very true when we talk about this. It does facilitates you the understanding of self and others. So when we talk about self, see the perception of self, which is self concept, is widely understood when you're able to know your likes, dislikes, your different patterns of emotion, when you know which is the best context for you to express emotion and what is the kind of emotion that I do not express well. So, this emotional intelligence facilitates the understanding of you, what is the best way that I decision make, what is the best way that myself is perceived amongst people, what is the most appreciated part of me. So, this way, we are able to have a best understanding of our self concept, self esteem, which is the value judgment that we do to ourselves, our efficacies. We are able to, balance what we can control in our outcomes only because of emotion and intelligence, which is emotional intelligence. And beyond that, superficially, we are also at the same time people who are able to regulate and control their emotion well, they're able to allow other people to express at the same time. I'll give you an example for this. Ever see an argument when two people are arguing? one of them would be very much interested to just go on and on with their argument. They will say everything that comes to their mind. Remember, they are not emotionally intelligent because they lack an awareness of self. At the same time, you will find another person who logically interprets the other person's emotion and state up conclusions stating that this was not the right way of presenting yourself. Probably you do not want to, when there's a discussion of probably change in place or shifting in place, they talk about you do not want to see the opportunities ahead, but you just want to see and look into the disability of today's shift. So, this is how an emotionally intelligent person is able to not only, I feel entangle, remove the tanglements of their emotion, but equally understand the other person. So it's not about facilitating yourself, but also the others at the same time. Another benefit is encourages and enables empathy so that the quality of interpersonal relationship improves in leaps and bounds, which is very true. Today emotional intelligence is adding so much to the social context. If we do not notice, being able to perceive people, being able to understand the others, and also not only understanding is not sympathy, but the empathy, being able to understand their situation in a way that you feel that okay, being in their shoe, trying to understand their grief with their perspective, trying to understand their joy with their perspective, their achievements with their perspective. So what empathy does to us, emotional intelligence allows us empathy very quickly, which further allows us to increase and to to facilitate the interpersonal relationships and interaction that we have with other people. So this interpersonal interaction gets facilitated by empathy. Then we come to the second last one, which talks about, see, emotional intelligence adds a lot to the competitive advantage over the cognitive intelligence. It does because, when you're able to understand other people, you're able to understand their tactics, their way of living, their way of perceiving things. So it's far more than cognition. Cognition is just about you understanding yourself, you judging, understanding, perceiving yourself, which is about technical and cognitive intelligence. Emotional intelligence supports you in competitions as an advantage because you are able to pursue with excellence success with wide variety of intelligences, because you have emotional intelligence, and at the same time you're able to map up the other person also. You're successfully able to understand the other person, successfully able to go through the fact that how this competitive situation would benefit me. So do I really need to win, or it's far more beneficial for the other person, but it's not going to be of any good to me. So you let that be. So this is how emotional intelligence adds up to the competitive advantage to a little level, which is not taken over by cognitive and technical. See, cognitive and technical intelligence, which is simply IQ, it is the ability to reason, understand, and judge well. It will not talk about understanding, regulation, intensity variation, discriminating from other people. All of this is not present in that. It does not add on to it. Then coming, allowing individuals and more, individual agencies and control over which, being able to, emotional intelligence allow individuals to control their emotions, and at the same time, experience emotions in varied variety, and they are able to understand that which ones they consider to be an undesirable in a given situation and which would be they like to switch to form desirable one. So what does emotional intelligence also allows us? It allows us to have a control over emotion, that which emotion gives us the best experiences and which emotions are going to give us the worst experiences. Along with that, this allows us to probably shift situations, uh, understand situations better, also at the same time being able to navigate through the situation. Like, at times when you're given a task to complete, some people just do it by rote learning. As the steps are given, just add. I just need to cut, copy, paste. Some people who are emotionally intelligent are able to manage their emotions, see that which topic here seems very undesirable. I can probably make a change in it and add on to the next. So, in submission, let's understand emotional intelligence is so fruitful to us. It helps us gain knowledge about other people, increase our thinking capacity. It's today more practical and realistic view, and helps us not suppress but enjoy expression of emotion correctly, facilitates understanding of self and others, allows you empathy, which is like, when it allows you empathy to understand other people, it's far, adding to your quality of interpersonals, an advantage in decision making, and at the same time allowing you to cope up well in your difficult times. So this was emotional intelligence that completes with unit 2 also. Hope it was a fruitful session. Thank you.